In this video, we're going to be filling out the bottom flap of section number 5 in your Unit 4, Unit 5 flipbook. This, I think, class, for many students, is probably the most difficult section of this unit. And I'll tell you, the most important part in this section, and really all the sections that have multiple steps to solve, is to force yourself to work out every step. No shortcuts. Follow every step as you practice each problem. Eventually you'll recognize patterns and you might be able to skip some steps. But in the beginning, try to make yourself do every single step so you learn the process correctly every time. So in this section, let's go ahead and write our essential question first. Our essential question. Oops, let's write this in red, if I can get red. How do I, oops, how about if I write EQ? Essential question. How do I complete the square? Complete the square. This process is called completing the square. And all we're doing in completing the square is we are taking a standard form quadratic and we are changing it to vertex form. So right above here, if you would, right on top of this, we're going to go from standard form, we're going to be converting to vertex form. Now you've already learned how to go from vertex form to standard form, that is by distribution. But this is a little trickier. We can convert any standard form quadratic to vertex form. Standard form to vertex form. All right, let's write our sample question over here on the side. I'm sorry, our sample equation, because as we're going to walk through these steps, I'm going to go ahead and solve an equation for you so you see the steps. Let's pick an equation. Y equals, we're going to write it in standard form, so x squared minus 8x plus 6. And I'm going to walk through the steps with you. We're going to solve each step as we go. All right, how do I complete the square? How do I change this standard form quadratic to vertex form? Step number 1, write the original equation or function. So I'm just going to follow right along with this. Step number 1, I'm going to write my original equation or function. Now class, you already know this from previous videos. Make sure you put the terms in proper order. And I'm going to put in here over on this side, proper order. So if they're out of order, fix them. In this case, we're good. Everything is in the proper order. We've got our A term, our B term, and our C term. Okay, that's step 1. Now I'm going to write these steps with numbers to match the list. All right, step number 2. Move the C term, if there is one, to the left side. So in this case, I need to move my C term from the right side to the left side. I have a C term. It is 6, so I'm going to move it over. It's positive 6, so we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So we end up with y minus 6 is equal to x squared minus 8x. Okay, step number 3. Now you've seen this when you were factoring. It's the same kind of step as factoring. If a is negative and or there is a greatest common factor in the coefficients on the right side, class, all we're looking at is on the right side. If there is a negative value, a negative a value, or a greatest common factor, then factor it out. Okay? And now look, we're only looking in the coefficients. So different from factoring here, we're not going to factor out any variables, just the coefficients. So let's take a look. The value of a over here is 1. That means a, there is no GCF, because if it's 1 and 8, the GCF is just 1. We have nothing to pull out. And then take a look at the a value. Is it negative? No, it's not negative. So for step number 3, a is positive. I'll put a little positive sign. There's nothing to do there. And the GCF is just equal to, I'll just put on here, actually, let's put GCF, none. So for this example, there's no common factor in the coefficients to pull out. Later, when I give you some more examples, you'll see some cases where there are. So step number 3, there was nothing to do to rewrite. Step number 4, write the final values of A, B, and C. The final values of A, B, and C. Now class, again, we're only looking at the right side of the equation. So our A value is equal to 1. Our B value, there is a B value, it is negative 8. At this point, we should never have a C value because we've already moved it over. C value is 0. Now notice what step 4 says. A must now be 1. So in this case, A was 1, so we're good to move on. Step number 5. Notice now I wasn't using black, but I'm okay. Step number 5. Rewrite the equation. I put a blank space in the quadratic on the right side and at the end of the left side. So in this step, we're going to rewrite our step number 2 quadratic, and we're going to write it like this. Y minus 6, and then we're going to put a blank space right here. We're going to put plus and a blank space is equal to x squared minus 8x plus, and then we're going to put another blank space. So we put a blank space on the end of the left side and the end of the right side. Okay, step number 6. To make a perfect square trinomial on the right side, use the formula b over 2 squared and write this value in the blank. Okay, let's do that. So step number 6, let's figure this out. So step number 6, we're going to have, let's change a color here. We're going to have b over 2 squared. So take a look at our b value in step 4. B value is negative 8. So we've got negative 8 over 2 squared. Negative 8 over 2 is negative 4 squared, and negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So we figured out that b over 2 squared is equal to 16. It says take this value and write it in the blank. So I'm going to take that value now and I'm going to go back and I'm going to, actually what I'll do is class, I'm going to rewrite this equation. Now in real life, when you're doing this, you just put the number in the blank. But I just want to show you each of these steps separately. So now this is going to turn into y minus 6 plus 16 is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. So there is our blank filled out. We've added 16 to both sides because 16 was the value of b over 2 squared. Let's take a look at our next step. Now it also says, since this is an equation, you must also add this value to the left side. So we can see that we're going to add it to both the right and the left side. Don't forget about this if you factored out a value in step 3. We didn't have anything to factor out. There was no GCF. Okay, step number 7. Factor the quadratic on the right side by using the formula b over 2. the sign will be the sign of the b term from step 4. So now what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and factor. If you look at this class, we're going to factor the standard form quadratic on the right. Now if you remember on a previous video, we talked about special forms or special cases of standard form quadratics. This is a special case. It's a perfect square trinomial. Now you can factor this through your normal factoring steps, but I recognize this pattern, and by the way, this will always be a perfect square trinomial if you do step 6 correctly. So now for step number 7, we're going to rewrite this as y minus 6 plus 16 is equal to, and the way you factor this class is you're going to write x, put a blank right here, and then a parentheses and a square. And this blank, what's going to go in this blank is going to be b over 2, which in this case is negative 8 over 2, which is equal to negative 4. So you're going to write in here negative 4. What we just did was we just factored the right side of this equation. X squared minus 8x plus 16 will factor to x minus 4 times x minus 4. We can write that as x minus 4 as a binomial squared. So there is step number 7. Step number 8. Add the common terms on the left side together. That's an easy step. So I'm going to go ahead and let's underline. Here's our common terms. Negative 6 and 16. So this is going to be y negative 6 plus 16 is positive 10. We don't do anything on the right side right now. So y plus 10 equals x minus 4 squared. And the last step is take the plus 10 and move it back to the other side. So in this final step, we're going to take the positive 10 and move it over. That means we subtract 10 from the left side. That's going to change our left side back to y. And then our right side, we're subtracting 10 as well. So we've got x minus 4 squared minus 10. And you can see, class, by the time we got to step number 9, we ended up changing our standard form quadratic to vertex form. And that is what completing the square does. Now, on the next couple videos, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 practice problems and have you work through them and follow these steps. Check your answer with my answer. See if you are following the steps correctly. Again, don't skip a step. Do them exactly as you see them, and if you do them a number of times over, not only in these examples but also in the class assignments, you will learn this process, how to get from a standard form quadratic to vertex form. So I'll see you in the next video as we do some practice problems.